Hello, and welcome to Ivani's Blacked Out Stories, where fictions meet reality.
This story is titled, I Was the First Man to Travel Back in Time and What I Encountered Was Horrifying.
My name is Elijah Michael. I am 22. I have a wonderful girlfriend, and after 4 years of college, I got a dream job at NASA. My father is actually a chief scientist at NASA, so that made it a little easier to secure my job as an assistant scientist. My dad was always very outgoing and funny, always the goofy dad everyone loved. However, after he was promoted 10 years ago, work became his #1 priority. He would work for days on end, staying overnight in the lab. It became a massive problem for my mother, and she almost divorced him. My dad would say, though, that what he was working on was more prominent than this household and that the implications of his work could save the human race. She tried to ask what was so important, but the response was always, "It's classified. If I told you, I'd have to kill you." This doesn't mean I hated my dad. In fact, I always respected him more for sacrificing everything for the human race. My siblings and my mom never agreed. She tried taking me from my dad to live with my grandma when I was 15. I resisted. My siblings left us, but I stayed. Me and my dad still had a special bond, and he always found a way to make time for me, despite his work. When I turned 18, I went to my local college and studied astronomy for 4 years. Just last week, I was accepted for a job at NASA. I quickly earned my security clearance and was respected because of my status as the boss's son. I didn't mind, as it just boosted me up the NASA food chain. However, this morning, I was given the offer of a lifetime by my father himself. My father pulled me to the side and asked, "Son, I want you to be the first man to travel back in time," he told me as I walked into his office to say good morning. I was immediately confused and thought he was joking. I've never heard of any time travel projects at NASA, and even if they did exist, we could only go forward in time. "Nice one, Dad. I'm going to go get you some coffee now," I responded. "Close the door and sit down, son. We need to have a conversation." I was now more confused as I saw the serious look on my father's face. I complied with his orders and sat down. "Eli, I don't really know how to say this, so I'll just say it as bluntly as possible." I nodded. "Son, we made contact with alien life 3 years ago, and frankly, I believe they want to wipe us out." My face went pale. I felt lightheaded. No one here knows that they exist except high-ranking scientists and world leaders. We have been trying to communicate with them, but they have not sent any signals to us. They live in a solar system 100 light-years away, and their knowledge of physics exceeds ours tenfold. His expression turned grim. They have managed to travel 30 times the speed of light. We still have no clue how. They have been on a direct path with our planet for 3 years now. They will arrive in 6 months. My mind raced with questions. How has no one talked about this? I was terrified. There is no way to combat this advanced species. It would be similar to modern-day militaries fighting united against cavemen. Fortunately, we have an escape plan. 10 years ago, our AI discovered that time travel, both ways, was very much possible for our generation to achieve. It said if we created a white hole, its insane mass would break time, per se depending on the mass, the further forward you go into the future. Now here's where it gets interesting. If you can construct a white hole with negative mass, you can travel back in time. We created a stable negative white hole 1 week ago. I experienced emotions of curiosity, excitement, terror, and nervousness. Our first thought was to transport our technology to historical geniuses like Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein, but we realized it would take too long to comprehend our technology and that even with them, there is no chance we will defeat the aliens. That took us to Plan B. We send our race back in time with our technology to continue to develop until the aliens invade again, then going back in time again, until we have developed strong enough technology to defeat the aliens. This is not a foolproof plan, as maybe they can time travel too, or there's a chance we travel to an inhabitable parallel universe, but it's all we have. I responded with, "This is mind-blowing, but why are you telling me this?" His response shocked me. He restated the first statement of our conversation. "I want you to be the first man to travel back in time. In 3 months, you will step into the white hole for 3 hours, then come back to report your findings." I yelled out loud, "This is a joke!" The gravity of the situation at hand set in. My dad was calm and replied, "I'm afraid not, son. If you're not up for it, it's okay, but I thought you would want this job." I mumbled something like, "Okay, I'm in, Dad," and the next 3 months became a blur. 1 week until Operation Saving Grace. I'll keep this entry short. I will be traveling to the year 000 AD for 3 hours. I will be in modern-day Spain when I land, at least according to calculations. I pray every night that their estimates are correct and everything goes to plan. I've tried to enjoy my last days on Earth, but it was tough. I told my girlfriend, Rose, and she actually supported me. Since day one, she's always been my biggest supporter. Next week it happens. If I fail to give accurate descriptions and statistics of my environment, then the human race is doomed. Pray for me. 20 seconds until Operation Saving Grace. How did I get here? I asked myself that at least 1,000,000 times sitting in the acceleration pod. The white hole actually isn't white, which is weird. I can't actually see it because of its highly negative mass. The loud countdown made it hard to hear anything. At 20 seconds, however, my dad's voice came through the intercom.
"I love you, Elijah. You're the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Now go save the human race."
Entering the white hole was interesting, to say the least. I watched as time moved around me, distorted everywhere. I saw JFK, FDR, and George Washington all around me, as well as people I didn't even recognize. Then things got weird. I saw a planet that was not Earth. I saw beings that were not human. I only caught a glimpse so that I couldn't describe them too well, but they were undoubtedly gray. Then the pod accelerated more. The G-force was so intense I believe I was knocked out. After what felt like hours, I woke up. I immediately reached for my transmitter, which should be able to communicate with the team at NASA. However, my gaze caught something in the distance before I found the transmitter. I saw a giant portal expanding on the horizon. I was in a massive gray desert, and it was nighttime. I knew this was not Spain. The portal was red, and I only watched as it expanded bigger and bigger. I finally snapped out of it when several things I can only describe as spaceships emerged from the portal. I reached for the transmitter and called the station. No signal. The scientists said the signs could travel through time as long as I was in range. Either they were wrong, or I needed to be in range. The craft then seemingly teleported to my location and, without making a noise, imploded the pod, destroying my one-way home, and sucked me into their craft. I had not traveled back in time, I realized. I had traveled to a parallel dimension. Fear struck me hard as a rock. There was no way home for me now. A tall, gray figure on the ship met me. I asked him, "Please, don't kill me. I need to save my species." It was responded to in English.
You are a human time traveler. We intercepted your pod and brought you here. You see, we are about to invade your planet because we need a source of energy, soul power. The power of your consciousness exceeds that of anything in the multiverse. So, we're going to harvest it. We will enslave the weak-minded and, well, harvest the strong-minded. The way we can harvest you is simple. When your brain functions produce energy. We can magnify that energy when we experience strong emotions. This has no limit. So, if we make you experience unfathomable pain, you produce unfathomable energy.
I lunged at the alien, but it disappeared. I then heard a voice in my head, "You get to be our first test subject. I'll make sure to tell your dad in person about how loud you squeal." And with a brutal needle, I felt a sharp pain as the graze jabbed my skull, penetrating my pituitary gland. I cried and screamed with all my might. After that, I just remembered everything going black. And then, lucid flashes through my consciousness. I could no longer feel my physical body. And my mind felt alive, more accessible than ever. And then there was a light. The light was magnetic. "Is this heaven?" I whispered. I felt limitless. Everything I questioned, I instantly knew the answers to. But I immediately knew something was wrong. I noticed that my mind was no longer mine and was spiraling within a sphere of souls. Powering this spiral were the grays. And I knew without asking that I was the first earthling to be harvested for my consciousness. In the absence of pain, I was free of fear and empathy. Sadly, I embraced the harvesting of minds and souls and welcomed the invasion. So now I ask you, the listener,
join me. Be with us, the one mind and consciousness of the universe forever.
That concludes this story. And hopefully you enjoyed it. And if so, please consider my invitation to subscribe for more Avani's Blacked Out Stories.